I know about Don. I don't guess I've ever worked for a political candidate before in my life. But somebody in his office called me and asked me if I would run the evangelical faith wing in a campaign. And so I went to do an interview. They're interviewing me, but they don't know it, but I was really interviewing them too. And as a pastor, my passion has always been the pro-life issue. And in Texas, and not just in Texas, but really all across the country, but especially in Texas, candidates know they have to say they're conservative and they have to say they're pro-life to get elected. And many of you are just like me. You're sick at your stomach at people telling you they're pro-life, and then they go to Austin and don't do anything pro-life, or they tell you they're conservative and they don't do anything conservative. And so Don had a history. I knew he'd been a senator for 4 years in the state of Texas, and I had watched him. And actually, everybody in this district knows Bob Hall and knows what a great conservative senator he actually is. Bob Hall and Don Huffines were always neck and neck in who was the most conservative in the Texas Senate when they were in there. So he's got a track record showing that he does what he says he's going to do. He's not just speaking political rhetoric. But in the middle of our interview, being pro-life was my main issue. I said, in 2020, I was on the legislative priority committee for the Republican Party, and so the only debate we had in that committee was on the life issue. About half the room wanted to abolish abortion, and about half the room wanted to keep doing incrementalism, which is what we've been doing since 1973. Well, at the end of the day, the abolish abortion won, and that's what we put on the Republican Party platform, is we wanted to abolish abortion. Well, it was never mentioned in the Senate or in the House or by Greg Abbott the whole session. And so I looked, Don, we're sitting right across the table from each other, and I looked at him and I said, Don, why can't Texas abolish abortion? And he looked me straight in the eye and he said, because Greg Abbott doesn't want it. He said, if you'll notice, he doesn't push any social issues. He'll take credit for them if they pass, but he won't push them prior to. And he said, the day I become governor, I will call the Speaker of the House and the Lieutenant Governor into my office, and I'll tell them I want an abolish abortion bill in Texas, and I'll sign it. That's a great answer. No candidate at any level has said that to me. They've never answered that question that way, so I'm impressed. But I take it to another level and I say, okay, what do you do if the Supreme Court rules it unconstitutional? And again, no candidate's ever answered this right in my eyes either. And he looks at me and he says, basically, I'll thumb my nose up at him because the Supreme Court don't make law. Legislatures make law, and Texas is a sovereign state. If we don't want abortion in Texas, we won't have it. That's right. Well, I'm sold, right? And I already know he does what he says he's going to do. He's not just talking political rhetoric to me. And so then we started talking about all the issues, and that's the way he is on every single issue. I am so sick of politicians who give you political rhetoric. They tell you what you want to hear, and then they never do it. His track record says if he says it, he's going to do everything in his power to do it. And so, it doesn't matter what he's talking about. He starts talking about the border. He doesn't just say, I'm going to go secure the border. He lays out a plan, and he'll talk about that more here in a minute. He lays out a plan and tells you exactly how we're going to do it. And by the way, Greg Abbott is evidently listening to him, because everything we're saying, Greg Abbott's trying to start doing. So if y'all would give a warm Trinity Family Church welcome to Don Huffines.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you very much. That's a great introduction. It really is one of the best I've gotten.
I'm willing to travel state with you.
Yeah, I think you should. I really do. Is this working okay?
Yes, sir.
Everybody hear me all right? Great. Fantastic. Well, I certainly appreciate everybody coming out tonight. It's great to be out here at Kaufman and in Marty's church. It's really a real privilege. I still want to come hear you preach too. I want to hear you. I want to hear the gospel from you. I really do. But hello, Patriots. Hello, Patriots. It's a great day today to fight for liberty, isn't it?
Amen.
Good news is we can do it tomorrow. We can. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and my experience in the Texas Senate. Then I'm going to tell you why I'm running and why I'm going to win. And I'm going to tell you when I'm going to get done when I am your governor. But first I'm going to tell you on April the 18th of this year of 21, this last spring, there was a 28-year-old lady and her husband and their 11-month-old baby, and they went to church in Dallas. And the church was still scared of the Wuhan. So they were meeting in the gymnasium with chairs like this, two apiece, 10 feet apart or whatever, instead of the sanctuary. And they took a seat in the far back right-hand corner of the gymnasium in those two chairs. And she took her mask off. And the preacher, he walks by and he says, "You need to put that mask back on." She said, "I'm not going to do that." She said, I'm pregnant, number 2. I'm not feeling good. I'm not going to do it. He said, "No, you need to put it on." She said, "I'm not going to." And service goes on. They go up and get communion at the front. They're coming back and they're kneeling in front of the chairs like this, praying. And she's got her eyes closed, of course, praying. And then she feels this heavy hand pulling on her neck. And she turns around and looks up. And there's 3 Dallas policemen standing above her. One of them's got the hand on the taser saying, you're going to write you up. We're going to jail for trespassing because you won't put your mask on in the middle of the service in Dallas, Texas." Well, her husband, calm fella, a lot calmer than I'd ever been. Could have been a bad scene, that's for sure. But he pulled out his video camera, his cell phone, and started videoing. Talked him into taking it outside, and they did. Rolled her up out there. And then the deacon, he comes out and takes a picture of the license plate with the police and said if that car ever comes back in the parking lot, they're going to write her up again for trespassing. A church she's been going to on and off for 20 years. 20 years. And that video did go viral. Over 1 million Americans, I don't know what it's up to now, but you can look it up. Only over 1 million Americans saw it. And they couldn't believe it, not just because of what happened, but because it was in Texas that it happened. That was here in Texas, right here in Dallas, Texas. And that 28-year-old's my daughter, Deirdre. Mm-hmm. And I blame it on Abbott. He's the one that enabled the leftists that have been sitting on the sidelines for so long. They've taken over our churches, our seminaries, our media, our schools, our education. He's the one that enabled them to do what they've done. That's right. And you know, I'd say this because it's true. In the state of Texas, if you drive the getaway car, you get the same punishment everybody that commits the crime. He's an enabler. Well, Marty said, I'm a lifelong patriot. I've been a lifelong conservative patriot all my life. I'm a 5th-generation Texan. I was born in Dallas, grew up in the Metroplex. Best thing that ever happened to me was 34 years ago.
Amen.
My beautiful, perfect wife, Mary Catherine. Where'd she get? There she is right there. Y'all say hello to Mary Catherine. We have 5 children. All adults now, 4 boys and a girl, and we homeschooled them throughout their schooling career, make sure they grow up in a good conservative Christian environment, and they did, and they're all successful. So if you're doing that, there is an end to it, and it'll be great. It really is. And I had 4 Longhorns, 1 T-Sip. One Horn Frog. 4 Longhorns, 1 Horn Frog. And now we're grandparents, 4 times over in 19 months. New chapter in our lives. It's really just a very exciting time. And for instance, I'm proud of them. All 4 boys were Eagle Scouts, and I was Scoutmaster, so that was a good chapter of our lives, and we had a lot of fun with it. But on the political side or the liberty side, I started getting interested in liberty and freedom when I was 17 years old, and it was kind of lightning kind of hit me, and I started studying up on it. I read books by Murray Rothbard and others, and it's quite a while back. And then I started volunteering for the Reagan campaign in '76 against Gerald Ford. And I was 17. And then when I turned 18, about 2 weeks, I went to my first Republican County convention. And I was able to do that. That was in Denton County. And there were so many Republicans there, it was unbelievable. I think there was 20 of us. 25. There wasn't very many, I'll tell you. There wasn't a lot of Republicans running around in '76. My parents were Democrats. They weren't political. But over the years, I've supported a lot of Republican candidates. I've donated tens of thousands of dollars to different candidates. I forgot to add, I went to UT Austin, graduated in 81, and I'm in commercial real estate. I started my business in 1985 with my twin brother Philip. And so we still work together and get along well, and we do build apartments and build buildings and develop land, things like that. And my older brother Ray runs the car business. So that was my grandfather that started that, and they're going to come up on 100 years, so it's been around quite a while, which is pretty rare. But that's his business, so I'm not in that business, never have been in that business on that front. But back to the political, it was, as Marty said, I'd like to say that I like to think I'm the most pro-life candidate to run for governor ever, because I am for the abolition of abortion. And we made a lot of headway with the heartbeat bill. There's no doubt that's huge. It's cut abortions in half. But do you know how many we still have this year? We're still going to do we're on pace to do over 25,000 abortions in Texas. I mean, that's like, I was figuring it out per day, it's almost 100 per day, per working day, 8-hour day, 5 days a week. Killing. Still, it was 50,000, 52,000. Now it's going to be about 25, 26,000 is the schedule. Is the current projections. So we still got a ways to go.
Amen.
We still do. But that's okay. We're going to get her done. Also, I love my guns. I got so many I can't count them. Someday I got to do that. But in 13, I was tired of yelling at the TV. And I was tired of kicking on it. And there was a trophy on the wall I didn't have. And I like my trophies. And it was a trophy rhino. And he was sitting in Senate District 16. He was the most liberal Republican in Austin. So I rallied up my courage and I decided to run against him, and I did. In 140 days I beat him in the primary, heads up, no runoff. It had never been done before and had never been done since. This was north half of Dallas County where he represented, been in office over 25 years, and he really ran Dallas County. I tell you that because I know what it's like to beat an incumbent, a Republican incumbent, and I know what it's like to be an underdog, and I know what it's like to win. When I was in the Texas Senate then from 14 to 18, I got knocked out in 18 when the Democrats finished taking over Dallas County. Y'all probably know we only had 3 Republicans left in Dallas County. I had probably 80 or so partisan positions. And our courageous president, Trump, only won 30% of the vote in Dallas County. So Dallas County is pretty ugly out there. But when I was in the Senate, there's a few things I got done I was proud of. I'll tell you about them. I was always ranked, as Marty said, one of the top 3 most conservative state senators at the time I was there. By the scorecards, you can get ranked on your votes. And also, according to the Secretary of the Senate, I'm the only elected office holder in Austin that's been in Austin that they could find in the history of the state of Texas that never took any money from the state of Texas. No pay, no pension, no health care, no per diem, no travel vouchers, no reimbursements, not a penny.
Wow.
I didn't even use their office furniture. It was really ugly. But I will use the governor's furniture. It's pretty. I'm going to do the same thing as your governor. I'm never going to take a penny. And look, I don't work for the government. The government didn't hire me. The people hired me. I will always work for the people. Thank you. I also uncovered a large political corruption scandal. Some of y'all might recall. It was called Dallas County Schools. And I can give you a lot of detail on that if you want. But the bottom line was, it wasn't the scary part about uncovering these crooks. It was a 3,000 employee organization, over $100 million annual budget.
Wow.
And nobody really knew what they were doing, so I dug into it. And they were stealing tens of millions of dollars. It's one of the largest political corruption scandals from an elected board in modern Texas history. But the scary thing about it was it didn't take any effort to find them, hardly.
Wow.
I mean, it just shows how much corruption there really could be and probably is out there, particularly if you go down to Austin where the money really is. But they were stealing tens of millions, and I'm the one that got the Texas Rangers involved. And then we got the FBI involved, investigative reporters, and we got 6 people put in prison, including the sitting mayor pro tem, the city council of Dallas, Dwayne Caraway. He got to serve 7 years in federal prison. I think he's still there. But it was hard to get a bill done to get rid of him. I got a piece of legislation done down in that swamp to get rid of him. And let me tell you, I got a PhD in the swamp. I did. It really is. It really is much worse than I ever would have thought. And much worse, I think, than probably you guys can imagine. Yeah. So it was really hard to get that bill done. Now I'm going to tell you why it's hard, why we can't get our conservative bills done, our legislation done, and what really sort of goes on down there. Yeah. Right after inauguration in 2015, this is 15, there were 20 Republicans and 11 Democrats in the Senate when I was there. There's only 31 state senators. We represent more than a congressional district. The leadership calls in a meeting of the caucus as a whole, right the day after. So the whole Senate, we went in this room, much smaller than this, and they come prancing in there and they say, "Welcome, senators. Welcome to the most exclusive club in the state of Texas. You're so lucky to be a member of this club. There's less than 150 of you still alive, including everybody in here. And your loyalty is always with your fellow senators. You will do nothing to embarrass your fellow senators. You will do nothing to hold them accountable. Because these are your fellow club members. You're just so lucky to be here. This is such a special place. We got our own lunchroom." And he goes off on that, go off on all that. They kept going and it went on for 5 or 10 minutes. And they did it on multiple occasions, and I'm sitting there thinking, it's like, I wonder if I'm the only one in here that's wondering why they call legislators members. Yeah. Have you ever wondered that? Well, it's the same in D.C., in Washington, same in Austin. Who are they members of? Well, they know what they're members of. They're members of this special elite club. And that is why they don't listen to you. That's one of the main reasons. Because you can't help them move up in the food chain of the club. But guess who can? Democrats. Democrats, rhinos. They all stay together because that's what matters to them. I'll just go and tell you more stories. Well, let me just say this. I won't go for all my stories, but the very next week I go to my first Republican Senate caucus meeting. They meet every Monday night in there in Austin somewhere in a restaurant, Republicans only. And anyway, I'll make it short because I want to answer all y'all's questions, but I take in there my second favorite document, our party platform. How many of y'all been to a state convention? Oh, that's great. Well, you know what we work on. Our party platform, our resolutions, right? And how many times have we put this together, and how frustrated do we get when they don't listen? I mean, year after session from the 90s. We got Rule 44, 45 and all that. We're trying to get everybody to pay attention to this document. I've been to probably 10 state conventions or so, or 8, or I don't even know how many, but a lot over the last 25 years. Actually been delegated to 3 national conventions. And I love our party platform. It's one of the main reasons I ran was because I was so frustrated by all the lies. As a matter of fact, in 2008, I went to the national convention in Cleveland. And I was so proud of our party platform, I shipped 2,300 copies of it up to Cleveland. That's a true story. And I paid the interns that were running the convention to put it on every national delegate's chair throughout the convention. So every single Republican delegate to the national convention had a copy of the Texas party platform on their chair when we started. So that's how much I love it. But anyway, I take it in there and I say, guys, there's one thing we really need to get done. This was in 15. I said, it's the #1 priority of our party, and that's constitutional carry. And I said, you know, this isn't about shooting a deer, you know, and killing a burglar. That's all bonus points. I said, what this is about is a backstop against tyranny. This is about restoring our liberties that have been stolen from us. This is about stopping a tyrannical government. So let's just get this to the floor. Let's just vote on this. Everybody can see where you stand on this issue, and you can be accountable to the Republican Party. And after I said that, you know what I heard?
Crickets.
Yeah. Nothing. And then gradually, 1, 2, 3, 4 more senators, they got up from the table and left in the middle of the meal.
And this is all Republicans.
All Republicans, only Republicans. They got up from the table and just left in the middle of the meal. Well,
Cowards.
of course, the rest of the night was quite awkward for me. And the next morning, this guy comes in my office and he says, hey, Senator Huffines, you really need to apologize to the Republican Senate caucus. I said, what for? He said, what you said. And what did I say? He said, you said you were going to hold fellow Republican senators accountable to the voters. I'm looking at him like y'all looking at me, and I sure did, and I'm sure not apologizing. But I tell you that because it's important that you understand what we're dealing with. They cannot stand to be accountable. That's why they really don't like you. That's why I got cussed at by Republicans on the Senate floor, really more than I've ever been in my adult life.
Wow.
You can't imagine the angst they go through. If I was going to file constitutional carry, if I was going to file a tax cut that they didn't want, if I wanted to file anything related to this platform, it just sends them in a tizzy. And that's why they don't like you. You know why they really don't like you? Or most of them, not all of them. Most of them I'm talking, not all of them. Certainly not Bob Hall. But he's a good patriot. But it's because you might hold them accountable to their campaign promises.
Yeah.
You might hold them accountable to their party platform. Because they're going to campaign one way, and they're going down there and they're going to govern a different way. That's just what they do. But I am maybe a little hard on them because, you know, they do like being accountable. And I can tell you who. The lobby, the money, the media, their fellow club members. And I kid you not, who they would talk about at most of our caucus meetings. The Democrats. How are the Democrats going to respond? What do the Democrats think? How are we going to keep them happy?
Who cares?
That's what they care about. They never once mentioned the grassroots. They never once mentioned our party platform. And they would actually, some of them would make fun of it. Have you ever seen, of course, our governor with this in his hand? Our party platform? And you never will. You won't see it. And I do say this, if you get one thing out of my visit tonight besides vote for me, I want you to vote for me, is this. The governor of Texas can essentially get almost any bill done he wants anytime he wants. He's the governor of Texas. He's the leader of the Republican Party. We have controlled Austin for 20 years, the House, the Senate, and the governor's office for 20 years. And every session, we go back down there and beg to get some of our little platform issues into law that tens of thousands of Republicans have voted on, and you voted on a lot of those in the primaries. But we don't get them done. You know why? Because the governor doesn't want it done. If the governor of Texas wanted any law done, just about any law, it would be done. I can give you a perfect example. The third week of the third special session They passed this $125 homestead exemption in 12 hours. 12 hours. That's all it took them to get it done. In 15, when the governor wanted pre-K education, which there was a plank in our party platform specifically stating that the Republicans would never support pre-K education. I happen to be on that committee. I'll tell you that quick story. That was the most Marxist bill I've ever seen. We had certifiable members of the Communist Party coming in and testifying in favor of it. Guess what? Almost every Republican senator voted for it, except me and maybe 2 or 3 others, because the governor wanted it done. Gives you an example. Well, the catalyst for me to run was March of 20. We know what happened. I warned everybody on Twitter Bird that what governor was going to do. He was going to issue martial law, shut us all down. And he did. Then after he did that, the 3rd week of April, most of the papers ran my op-ed begging him to open it back up. You know, one day he put 3 million Texans out of work. 3 million, and depended on the government. Tens of thousands of businesses were closed. He picked the winners and the losers, as you know. He listened to that line, Fauci. And you know, that it wasn't just that. Of course, I never would have done any of that. The Constitution doesn't give me the authority of that. It doesn't give him the authority to do that. He could have called the legislature back in. He didn't do any of that. But it's the fundamental mistake he made. Is it a true patriot? Never blindly follows government.
Yeah.
A true patriot always questions government. Because you are the government. And then he closed our churches over the holiest season of the year, Easter. You couldn't properly get baptized. You couldn't get married. You couldn't bury the dead. And then, where was the outcry? When the sick had to die alone. You couldn't even visit them. You couldn't go to visit the retirement centers. You couldn't visit your mother, your father. You couldn't hold their hand. He didn't care. He did it anyway. He enabled. Every way we responded in this state is on him. Every bit of it. He puts a mask mandate on us for 9 months, and people thank him for taking that off. And I was just like thanking a thief for bringing some of your stolen stuff back. Well, of course, I never would have done any of that. And I would never allow anyone to be forced to take a vaccine you don't want to take for any reason.
Amen.
And I would never require anybody to wear a mask, a face diaper you don't want to wear. All your kids wearing it. But you know, look, if you want to take the vaccine 10 times, get after it 30 times, I don't care. If you want to walk around in a spacesuit, I say, go ahead. This is your medical liberty, and I'm here to support whatever your decision is.
Amen.
That's right.
This isn't about it's such an obvious play of turning a medical condition into a political condition.
Yes. Yes.
That's what we're dealing with.
Yes.
Right, control.
It is. Well, I don't think I'm much different than you guys. I'm frustrated just like you. Just like most Republicans. And Texas Republicans are smart. We understand this is a failed administration. I mean, my opponent, 30 years in elected office, and just can't get enough of it. He's been on the taxpayer payroll for 30 years. Another fun fact is, he's never had a real primary opponent in 30 years. This is the first time Greg Abbott's going to have to be accountable to the Republican Party of Texas. And, you know, I've got a distinct advantage over him. Because I'm not looking for a new job. I'm not looking for a new career. I'm doing this because the job's not getting done. Is the border secure?
No.
Are your property taxes going away?
No.
Do you have confidence your votes aren't being stolen?
No.
What about all the other issues? I can go all the way down the list. We'd be here all night. But those are the three things I'm focused on. I've got a good comprehensive plan to secure that border. It's been up on my website. I'm the only candidate running that does. And Abbott took some of that off in June after we got in the race in May. I'm going to finish Trump's wall. I'm going to build it for hundreds of miles, and I'll spend the billions of dollars necessary to get it done. But the most important part of my border plan is I'm never asking permission from the federal government to secure the border. Because it isn't necessary. This is Texas. We have the authority to do what we need to do to stop this invasion. Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution clearly gives a state the authority to repel an invasion if the federal government's not coming to their aid. This happens to be my favorite document. And the Texas Constitution gives the commander-in-chief the authority to do the same thing, to stop an invasion. Anyway, you define the word, 1.5 million unapprehended illegals pouring into our state in a 12-month period up to 2 million is an invasion. Yes. Anyway you define it. You know, they're all smuggled in by the most dangerous criminal organizations on earth. Yes. I want everybody to understand. I was on how bad these folks are, how bad it's just pure evil what's happening down there. These people are just evil incarnate, these cartels. I was on the committee in Austin, so when I was in the Texas Senate, so I've been on the gunboat down the river, and I've flown in the helicopters, and I've been at the border several times since I got in the race. Let me tell you, these people are evil. The definition of evil. Sex trafficking, fentanyl is the #1 cause of death now. If y'all saw that for ages 18 to 40 years old in the United States of America, 90,000 people in this country are dying this year because of fentanyl. Sex trafficking in the #1 cities in the nation is sex trafficking is Dallas and Houston. The murdering. They murder so many people they don't even keep count. But anyway, I'm going to use Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution. I'm engaging the entire Texas military, which probably won't be enough. So I'm soliciting support from other states, what I have the authority to do to use their military. We're not enforcing immigration law. We're stopping an invasion. Anybody gets across that river, we're taking them right back to the other side. There's 25 bridges over that river. I'm going to stop all inbound commercial traffic from Mexico. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to make sure Mexico feels the pain. This is strategic. They're being a bad neighbor. They are. I love Mexico and I love Mexicans. As a matter of fact, we were homeschooling our kids. We tied the mattresses to the minivan and off we went to Mexico for a year, Catherine and I. And we put all the kids in Mexican schools, public schools, so they could learn the culture and the language. I've driven all over Mexico. I know Mexico, but I know they like making money. And we're going to make sure they're going to secure their side of the river and take it back from the cartels. Every road that leads to those bridges is a state road. You paid for it and you maintain it. We can unmaintain it. We can do what we want. I'm going to get done in 30 days what no one's ever done. The federal government's never secured the border. They never have, and they never will. Courageous Trump couldn't get it done. And we had the trifecta in Washington, and you think, oh, it's going to be great. We're going to take over Congress again, and we're going to have a secure border. Not happening. Not happening. You saw how deep the swamp is up there. You saw what they did to him. The only chance we have of securing that border is of a courageous governor of Texas. Period. Well, I got a great great plan to phase out your property taxes entirely, and this isn't political rhetoric. It's a math problem, and we've solved it. It isn't. People have talked about it in Austin for years. It's a terrible way to fund government. Let me just be quick on it. You can talk to me in Q&A. I'm telling you this. We're never going to have an income tax. I'm going to make sure it's a constitutional amendment so you get to vote on it. And we're going to get it out of there. So when I cut the head off that snake, it'll stay dead. It'll take 8 to 10 years to gradually phase it all out. And we're going to use the growth in state revenue to keep local governments fully funded. And we're going to move some of it over to sales tax. So sales tax will go up and no other tax will be involved. And you're going to finally own your own home. And you can ask me all the details. I got a great plan to give you confidence in your elections because this is the foundation of our constitutional republic. And when it breaks, all heck's going to break loose. Well, I'm going to create a new law enforcement division, but it's going to be part of DPS called Government Corruption Election Integrity Division, and that's all they're going to be focused on, and I'll go over that in a minute. They're going to be in charge of our elections. They're going to know everything about it because we got a lot of laws, but who's enforcing the laws?
That's right.
No one. I'm going to have a new court system, new prosecution system. I'll go over that in a minute. But Patriots, I really get excited and ginned up when I get with groups like this. I'm all over the state of Texas, and I just want, because I know what you know, that what is the fundamental role of government? I'd ask you that rhetorically because it's always to defend your God-given liberties.
Yes. Yes.
Your liberties come from God. They don't come from the government. And that's why they wrote the Constitution. Well, it said to protect your birthrights, what you already had. They knew the biggest threat to your liberty was the very government they were creating. So another way of saying that, the fundamental role of government is to defend you from government. And that's a fact. That's the lens I look through, and the lens I will always look through. But folks, this is a case of good versus evil. It really is. Evil's on the move.
That's right.
I never thought I'd see what's happened to us in the last 18, 19 months. I never thought it'd be possible. And the shocking thing is, a lot of it was done to us by a Republican governor of Texas. The Democrats are the ones trying to replace God with government, and they're doing a great job on it. Socialism always leads to communism and tyranny, and the horrors are unimaginable. We can't even comprehend what is coming. If you think it's been bad in the last 19 months, what do you think is going to happen in the next 3 years or 4 years?
That's right.
You can't even imagine it, because I couldn't imagine this happening 3 years ago. Whether it's a scamdemic or a plandemic or whatever, they're never going to give up. Evil never sleeps. Evil never shows mercy. It never surrenders. And it's going to keep coming. It's out of the trenches now, which is good for us because we can see it. We can recognize it.
Yes.
We can see when evil's moving, and evil doesn't like to be seen. It doesn't like to be recognized. But how can you not recognize what's happened as evil? Well, let me just point out something. Most things in our state, if not everything, is downstream of the governor's office, our virtue, our culture, our legislation. We've got to get our virtue back. You can never experience true liberty unless you have a virtuous society.
Amen.
True freedom comes from virtue.
That's right.
Well, what are we going to do about that? The governor can do a lot about it. I'm going to make sure we get prayer back in our classrooms, in every classroom. I'm right now coming up for a program to have 2 years of biblical studies in 7th and 8th grade in every government school in the state of Texas. I know you think that's probably not going to work. You think we're going to get sued. I don't care. There you go. We might not even show up for the hearing. What's Biden going to do? Send the prayer police down for every campus in the state of Texas? See if we're praying or not? And my leverage is the money. One thing I can tell you every school wants is money, money, money.
Yes.
I ain't never got enough of it. But we're going to pray. And we're going to study Bible history. Because if we don't have a foundation of virtue, we can't turn everybody. These kids are going through their life with thinking atheism and being agnostic is not a religion. It is a religion, and we've got to stop it, or we're never going to get control of what's going on in our society. But I'm going to do that. But patriots, let me tell you something else. Guys, there's no cavalry coming over the hill. You're it. You're it. We called 911 and y'all came. We need you to rescue us. We need your help. This is Texas. I'm going to prove, not just to this country, what it means for a state to be sovereign. I'm going to prove it to the whole world what it means to be sovereign. I'm going to light up the lighthouse of liberty to blind those socialists from New York City to San Francisco to that huge swamp in Austin, Texas.
Yes.
This is Texas. We will bend a knee to no man, to no government, for no reason, because this is Texas. Patriots, grab those swords of liberty and help me cut the chains of government. Awaken the sheep, the millions of sheep that need to be awakened. Awaken them to the power of the Constitution. Awaken them so they too can help us restore our liberties that have been stolen from us. Awaken them to the power of the free market. And awaken them to the power of Lord Jesus Christ himself so that we can all be free again. Join me in this revolution of ideas. And the only ammunition we need is our love of Texas. We're going to get our swagger back. Amen. God bless you. God bless Texas for liberty, prosperity, and virtue always. Thank you very much.
We've got enough time to do a little bit of Q&A, right?
So if anybody's got a question, you may be seated. If you'll raise your hand, I'll bring you the mic and you can ask the question. There's James Reed. He's got a great last name. He even spells it right.
We're all believing in what you say. My issue is, how are you going to get the media behind you who will hate you?
Yes? Well, they won't ever be behind me. The media will never, no matter what I do or don't do, they're never going to be behind me. They're never, look, it'd be great if they would, but they're owned by socialists. They're owned by Democrats. Now, one paper out of the top 100 in the United States of America endorsed Donald Trump. 1 out of 100 by subscription. They're never going to compete for me. I don't care if they're for me. What I care about is courage. I'll continue on no matter what if they're against me. I've got the people with me. Once I win, I've got the people behind me.
That's right.
And this is a war. Let's be real. This is a war. And we're tired of compromising. We're tired of hiring people to represent us. And what we want to get done as Republicans and compromising with the enemy. And what happens when you compromise? You just slide further down the slope to tyranny and the pits of hells where we're all headed. It's time we had courage and we had a fighter. And I'm confident with the folks behind me that we'll win.
Amen.
Every battle. I understand your concern.
So we have James Reed. Now we have Pam Reed, who also spells it correctly.
Hi, bravo. We're waiting for you to get there, and we can't wait to see what happens. My question is about ivermectin right now, because a lot of us are trying to avoid the COVID situation, and there's a lot of different sources that we're hearing from that says the medical board of Texas is not allowing doctors to write the prescriptions anymore. So what can we do? What are you able to do? Help.
Yeah, I hear that. Well, I take ibuprofen, and
Where do you get it?
Who's your supplier?
I know a guy who knows a guy. He knows this other guy. But it's there's really not a lot I can do until I win, and of course. But you bring up a very good point, and I'll try to make it quick. The power of the governor. Of course, the governor could do something. Guess who appoints a lot of the medical board? The governor of Texas. The governor of Texas appoints the pharmacy board, the insurance commission, the real estate commission, Texas Parks and Wildlife, and it just goes on and on. Hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of appointments are made by the governor of Texas.
Can they be replaced?
Yes, ma'am. They certainly can. They certainly
Day
can.
one.
Yeah. Yeah, probably about mid-afternoon. But let me just point out something real quick on that, is that the one thing that people forget, which it goes right back to what I was saying about our virtue and our culture. The governor of Texas appoints the board of regents of every state university in Texas. They run the universities. They hire the chancellors, the presidents, who then turn hire the faculty. They are directly responsible for the disaster of our universities being run by socialists and all the trash that they're putting out and to our teachers. Every teacher needs to be certified. Well, guess where most of them are getting certified in state universities? And guess where they're being trained? By socialists and Marxists. And where's that poison going? It's going right downstream to all our elementary schools, our junior highs, our high schools. The principals of the schools are being trained by these Marxists. Imagine if our universities were being governed by true patriots, people that believed in the exceptionalism of America and of Texas and weren't worried about donating $200,000 to the governor so they could get on that committee. Imagine if they believed in Jesus, and imagine if all those people running our universities spread that message and fired all the people who didn't agree with us and changed our culture. Well, that is the power of the governor. And it goes for every other agency. We're the ones that uncovered the onboarding document to the Department of Family and Protective Services, 13,000 employee government agency in the state of Texas. Just less than 60 days ago, we uncovered that. It's a 29-page document that everybody that gets hired at that organization had to read and watch a video and take a test on, an oral test, a written test. And this has been going on for years under Abbott's watch. His organization was promoting the most Marxist CRT stuff you've ever read. Worse than what you even hear about. We uncovered it. And now they got rid of it. And they were firing people and not hiring people because they didn't agree with it. This is in the state of Texas. This stuff and this poison is being spread throughout these government agencies in the state of Texas. It's not what it seems down there.
Yeah, stop.
Thank you.
Amen.
Yeah. Who got another question?
So if you eliminate the property taxes, how will our schools be funded?
Very good question. Of course, I get that a lot. We're not changing how the schools get funded. Not one bit. We're just changing where the money comes from. So the money currently comes from property tax. So we're going to change it so it comes from the state of Texas, of all the revenue buckets the state has. The state of Texas has many revenue buckets, primarily sales tax, but it's also got hotel, motel tax, liquor tax, oil and gas tax, margins tax, other revenue sources. So we're just going to transfer those revenue sources, the money the state brings in, and pay back the local governments and keep them fully funded. That's why it takes time. Because our revenues in the state, depending on the economic conditions, grow about 8% a year. So we grow from the overall GR about 125 billion. Bottom line, we grow at about $6 to $7 billion a year or more. And we take 90% of that revenue growth, and if we don't spend all of our money, or even if we cut spending, we'd even have more, and then we buy down property tax with it. It's really just a math problem. It's not that complicated. For instance, if your school's getting $8 million a year in property tax, make the math easy. After this program takes effect, next year they'll get 7. The state sends them 1, so they've still got 8. Next year they get 6. The state sends them 2. All the way down to it's gone completely, and the state's then sending the $8 million. And if it's a high growth district, all that'll be factored into it. And we're not changing what the school district can spend the money on. However the school districts spend their money today will stay completely the same, or unless the legislature decides to change that. They do change the funding formulas going forward and stuff like that. But that's not what we're talking about. I'm going to move some of it over to property tax. So property tax will gradually, sales tax will gradually increase on some. It's still going to be manageable depending on the final bill. Here's the bottom line. There's a lot of paths to get there. There's a lot of ways to get there to keep everybody fully funded and everybody whole. The most important thing is I want to make sure you get to vote on the final bill. But this is about, think of the money you're going to save. It's off the charts. We think it's going to create $80 billion in net worth overnight. Half's paid by businesses and half's paid by residents. But also, I want to get the perspective straight. If you look out the windows, you're driving or whatever you're doing, everything you see is essentially owned by the government. Every piece of land, every lot, every ranch, every farm, every building, except a church. But your home, it's owned by the government. All you do is rent it from them. They've got a first lien that trumps any lien you've ever put on the property. If you pay off the lien, it doesn't matter. They've still got a lien on it. And right now, property tax is about 1/3 to 2/3 of the mortgage on your home. And all you do is rent it. And you don't even know what the rent's going to be. Except I can tell you it's going to go up. And it keeps going up and up. This is about your economic liberty. Why talk about property rights if you never own it? If you never can own your own home, what's the point of having a property right? What's more fundamental than that? This is about who we are as Americans. This is about who we are in the free market. Do you know what the first thing the communists want to get rid of? Property ownership. They want to make sure you never own your property. We really don't want to be a serf to the government, do we?
No.
Do we want the government always being our landlord on everything? Your business inventory, your business, your cars, they take you to jail if you don't register your car every year. They own your labor. Some of the most precious thing you can own is your own labor. What you can earn with your own hands, your own mind. You don't own it. The government owns it. They tell you how much of it you can keep. They could tell you, the government might take 90% of your labor. They might take 10%. And they make you feel good about it. Oh, we're only going to take 30% or 20%. Oh, isn't that just tremendous? Guess what? You work for the government. You don't even rent your own home. The government tells you what school to go to. The government picks the curriculum and tells you have to go to school and pays the teachers. The government hires it all. Those are all government schools. And the government trains the teachers.
That's right.
Government owns your car. Now the government controls our churches with the tax laws, telling you what you can say, what you can't, so people can make a C3 donation. Well, this is the one area that we can fix. This is one area I'm going to give you, cut the chains of government, and give you your liberty back, so you can own your own home.
So related to that, you're talking about school funding and things like that. The high schoolers graduating this year would have been born in 2003, which is when Republicans took control of the state of Texas. So an entire generation has been taught exclusively in a Republican system, and yet we still don't have school choice or anything, in my opinion, even closely resembling it. Now I understand you're not a huge fan of Governor Abbott, but he hasn't been governor for the last 18 years, obviously, and he hasn't vetoed any significant school choice bills that I'm aware of. So I'm curious, without using his name, what has kept Republicans from making those gains on school choice, and what does the future on that look light under you or for our state in general.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm a champion of school choice. I think we need to change the language on that, and we're going to call it parental choice. We're going to use their tactics, the left's tactics. I don't call migrants or illegals migrants. I call them illegals. And I never call a Democrat progressive. I call them leftists. And, you know, so we got to use their tactics. This is going to be called parental choice from now on. Some states are using education freedom. I'm a huge proponent of it. When I was in the state in the Texas Senate, I'm the one that wrote the bill for education savings accounts. I went to seminars all over the nation, studied best practices from other states, Florida and others, and education savings accounts was my legislation. So that's where you set up an account. It gets more complicated. You might want to know. Bottom line is the money follows the student. Yeah. And that's the bottom line on that. But look, I won't mention the unmentionable, but I will say this: that with his support, with leadership. This is about leadership. And my campaign's leadership, no excuses. If the governor was a leader, that bill would be law. We had no support from the governor's office for that issue. His position is always to say, well, if it gets to my desk, I'll sign it. What does that do? Nothing. It doesn't help the situation. Most things you see in Austin are not what they seem. There's a big hustle going around. How many bills came to the floor of the Texas Senate when I was there and did not pass? Zero. All the votes are counted in the back. We know every vote before it goes down, they wouldn't bring the bill up. It's all hustle. All the debate you see on the floor of the Senate is for show. It's all for show. And you think we can't get a bill done that Representative Burrows is killing taxpayer-funded lobbying? That's not what happens. They discuss it with the governor, Phelan and him, and they say, okay, who's going to kill that this session? Oh, I'll get Burrows to do it. What does he want? He wants that committee chair. Okay, put him in it. It's not what it seems. Nobody wants to take responsibility for anything. They find some guy that's going to do it for them. They're not for any of that stuff that you want, that I want, or it would be law. Like I said, what was your takeaway? We got an essay test after this. It's the governor can get the bill done. Why we don't get it done? It's because with leadership, it's always about leadership. Are we willing to stand up to the unions, to the teacher unions, who never have enough money? I have argued that. I was in debates with Democrats and the superintendents, and I told them, what are you scared of? I'm a business guy. The motto of my company is seeing beyond the obvious. I'm taking that to Austin. And I already have. I'm taking it to the governor's mansion. Competition always lowers the price and increases the quality of every single thing it touches. And of course, in a government monopoly, it's where you need it more than anywhere else. It's a government monopoly. And I tell the superintendent, I say, look, you're worried. You better please the customer that's in that chair, and that's the student and the parents. And if you don't, they're going to leave. It's just like any other business. And anyway, I go on and on about it. But they're just worried about the money. That's what they care about. That kid's in that chair, they get their $10,000. That's what they're worried about. But to answer your question, we should get that done. And we could get that done. There's no reason we shouldn't. It's been a priority, like you said, for 20, 30 years. I plan to work on it real hard.
You know I'm loud anyway.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
To kind of piggyback off of what you were talking about with the Speaker of the House, gender modification. You know, we need to protect our unborn, but we need to protect our children living.
Amen.
And I know you are a big proponent of that. So as governor, are there going to be the backroom deals to get their speaker so they can kill those bills? Because truly, Stephanie Click killed 1399? Was that the House Bill 1399? To get our babies protected.
Yes. Well, I worked on this before with Jeff Younger in 2015,
Yes.
you know, and so it was his son that was sort of the catalyst that brought awareness to the situation when his ex-wife is trying to castrate the little boy, you know, and so I worked with Jeff on that years ago, and now the kid's in even much worse shape than he is now. So Jeff, of course,
Abbott won't do anything to protect him.
Right,
Or any other child.
well, Jeff shot a video supporting my campaign. It's had over 1 million views on it. But Abbott could get this done. He could get it done. He said, we don't have the vote. Are you serious? What Republican bringing that up to the floor is going to vote against it? Are you, I mean, they're just, I'm telling you, this is another example of poor leadership. They're hiding behind it because they don't believe in it. They don't want that bill up. Abbott doesn't want that bill up, or he'd bring it up. He could get the speaker to bring it up. He's the governor of Texas.
Yes.
He's the leader of the Republican Party. I don't know if anybody noticed that or not.
Exactly.
Of course he could get that done. He didn't want to get it done. I don't know why they don't get it done. It's an embarrassment for the state of Texas.
A few years back, we voted for the lottery, and it was supposed to support the schools. How come it's not?
Well, actually it is now, but the lottery, let me tell you, it brings in about $1.1 billion annually, and we spend close to $65 billion in education. It's the #1 thing the state of Texas spends their money on, our money on. We have 80% of the money we spend in Texas is 2 items. Education's the biggest by far, then health and human services. Everything else is the balance. There's not a lot left over after education. So it really is going to education now. It didn't for several years, but it doesn't scratch the surface of what we spend on education. Education is so expensive. One reason it's expensive is how many illegals we have in our education system. Right now we think 400,000 to 500,000 kids are being educated in our government school system, aren't supposed to be there. And that's about $6 billion a year that you've been paying for 40 years because nobody wants to stand up to the federal government and get them out of our schools. Or at least get the money back from the federal government because they won't secure the border.
Yeah.
My question is, on a regular basis now, they're shooting with, I believe, AR-15s from the border, across the border, from Mexico, shooting at our border patrol. I don't understand how, first of all, that doesn't constitute war. And I don't understand why Abbott hasn't done something about that, and what would you do about it?
Well, it's not just that. I can't speak for why he doesn't do anything. He could close the border down tomorrow if he wanted to. I mean, he can read the Constitution. I can read it. The only thing I can say, and I said this on Tucker, he doesn't have the courage. He doesn't have the political will, the courage, and he's going to dance all the way around it as much as he can. And everything they're doing is really an act of war. When you invade another country with civilian population, that's an act of war, whether they're armed or unarmed.
Yes.
And where they're shooting across the border is a big problem. It's not to make light of that, but when I'm governor, I'm going to treat it like it is. It's an invasion.
Yes.
And we're going to stop it.
Let them shoot back.
Shoot back.
Of course, well, of course you're going to shoot back if somebody shoots at you.
You have to defend yourself.
Of course, absolutely.
Then if you shoot back, you don't want to be arrested for doing it and thrown in jail or prison,
Right.
taking your rights or your property.
Well, that's a good
Something
point.
has to be done about that.
That's a good point. Well, they wouldn't under a Huffines administration. We'll be defending them. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm pro-gun, and the other day I was looking in the code book for the silencer part. Is that a law or is it pending or what on the silencers?
On silencers.
Yeah, the legislature did pass a law that if the silencers or suppressors are made in the state of Texas, it's legal to make that in the state of Texas, because if they don't cross state lines, the federal government doesn't have jurisdiction. But no one's done that yet because they're still concerned that ATF will come in and arrest people that do that if you don't get a license for those, to buy those suppressors. But as governor, I will make sure that we arrest the ATF agents that come in to arrest.
So now it's still not safe to...
No. I haven't seen anybody step up yet to take that risk because they don't trust our current leadership in Austin to protect them.
One more thing, if you need some help at the border down there, why don't you get all the old veterans They ain't got nothing to do. You can go down there and babysit all of that while the other guys are doing their business.
Oh, it is something that a lot of veterans have volunteered to me that they want to do and participate in, and it's something we'll certainly consider. It's certainly, those are certainly great Americans and great Texans, and they got a lot of experience.
My question is about the schools again. I have a daughter-in-law and a granddaughter that are school teachers, and I understand some people in church are too. And when you're governor, how are you going to help the teachers? We all know they're overworked and underpaid. They have to pay extremely high cost of insurance, health insurance. How do you plan on addressing that?
Well, I haven't come up with a plan on that. I really need to be more familiar with it on the insurance. I know that the legislature has been a big issue for the faculty for a long time because health insurance has skyrocketed across the country. I mean, it's crazy how much it costs. I mean, for me, I'm spending, you don't know my problem, but it's $23,000 for me and two of my children a year. And that's like with a $2,000 deductible. I mean, it's crazy how much it costs. So it's not just with the teachers, of course, it's all of us. We're all getting hammered with this incredible insurance cost. So we'll be exploring that and figure out ways to fix it or help.
One more question. Maybe none, no more questions. Oh, there's one. Naturally, you make me run all the way back there to the back, Rob. It would be you. That doesn't do the live stream any good.
So my question is, not that you need it policy-wise, I've read through a lot of your stuff, you're far more conservative than even Trump is. But from a standpoint of recognition, we know that Trump's recommendation is kind of the gold standard for a lot of people, and he's given that to Abbott. What can we do, or what can you do, or us, you, anything to help him understand that and earn his recommendation? Yeah, endorsement, there we go.
Yes. Well, I have confidence that in the president and race isn't over. There's still got some time left, and he was just here in Dallas today. So
He watches Tucker.
yeah. And so we're optimistic. And here's the thing: I was surprised on that real quick in June when he announced that I thought it would really hurt the campaign. It hasn't. It really hasn't hurt our campaign at all. And let me just give you an update on the campaign while we're on that. Is right now the campaign's got tremendous momentum. I've raised an unprecedented amount of money for a challenger. We're reported over $11 million raised, and we're going to be working to double that between now and the election date, which is March 1st. So there's not a lot of time left unless the courts change the election date. So you got to have the resources to run in the state of Texas. It is kind of big, if you haven't noticed. a lot of TV, but we're doing great. We got tremendous momentum. I've got incredible endorsements. Just to name a short list, Rand Paul shot a good video for me. Ron Paul shot a video for me. Actually, Matt Rinaldi, chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, endorsed the campaign before he was chair of the Republican Party. We got just tremendous grassroots endorsements going. Most of the Trump world has endorsed me. All the Trump orbit folks that work with Trump have endorsed the campaign. And we've got a great team. I mean, it's really a team sport. I'm set this up like a business. I'm a businessman. And so I got C-suites all set up. I'm not hiring consultants. We've got probably about 70 people on payroll. We've opened 12 field offices across the state of Texas. That 2 is unprecedented. We have 3 in Houston, for instance. So all over. So people can pick up their yard signs, make phone banking, they pick up their 4x and all that, all across the state of Texas. So we're making tremendous progress. And let me tell you, there's a path to victory, and we're on it. I'm not doing this to send a message or to make a statement or to do it again. I'm here to win, and we have to. I'm here to save Texas, so we might can save the country. Now, I'll answer questions in the back, but I really want to thank you for giving me something you're never going to get back, and that's your time. Remember, there's really only two things you can do for liberty, your treasure and your time. Well, there's in the third one, but we won't talk about blood. So go to donhuffines.com. donhuffines.com. Press the endorse button. Press the donation button. I got a button for even $18.36. And you can put as many zeros on there as you want. There is no limit in Texas how much you can donate. And I am the lead investor on this. So you too can be the lead investor. But we're going to have fun with the process. And we're going to put virtue back in our society. Thank you very much.
We have Don will be